You felt it before you read the email. That drop in your stomach when you saw the subject line. Exciting new AI tutoring program for our students. Exciting for who, you wondered. Not for you, not for your kid. You sat there staring at the screen knowing something was wrong, but not having the words to explain why. And that silence, that inability to name what you were feeling, that was the first part of the design. You're not wrong. You're not paranoid. You're not one of those parents. You're a person who felt a door closing that you didn't even know was open. And what I need you to understand is that door was never for you. It was built to let something in while you were still trying to figure out what the invitation meant. I read the contract, the one they didn't attach to the email. The one you have to request through a public records filing that most parents don't know exists. I read it because I needed to know if what you were feeling had a name. And it does. It's called data extraction dressed as care. It's called surveillance wrapped in the language of personalized learning. It's called an architecture of extraction that your school district purchased with money meant for your child's education and the company that sold it to them. They have a name for you too. They call you a data subject. They call your child a learner profile. They call the whole thing an ecosystem. And you need to understand what kind of ecosystem feeds on the attention and behavior and confusion of 8-year-olds. Let me walk you through how this works because the mechanism is simpler than they want you to believe. And once you see it, you will not unsee it. The AI tutor is not a tutor. It is an interface, a very sophisticated, very friendly, very patient interface that sits between your child and the actual learning material. Your child asks a question. The interface responds. That part you know. What you don't know is that every keystroke is logged. Every hesitation, every wrong answer. Every moment your child stares at the screen without typing, the system is measuring something called engagement latency, which is a fancy way of saying they're timing how long it takes your kid to feel confused. They're building a map of your child's frustration. They're cataloging the exact moment comprehension breaks down. And they're doing this not so they can teach better, but so they can predict what your child will struggle with next, what they'll click on next, what they'll feel next. And that prediction, that model of your child's inner life, that is the product. That is what gets sold. The privacy policy says de-identified data. De-identified is a comforting word. It sounds like protection. It sounds like they took your child's name off the file and now no one can know it's them. But researchers at Stanford and the University of Chicago have been proving for years that de-identified student data is a fiction. They took supposedly anonymous educational records, cross-referenced them with publicly available information like zip codes, birth dates, school lunch program enrollment, and they re-identified individual students with 87% accuracy. 87%? That means when the company says they share de-identified data with third-party partners for advertising and analytics purposes. What they mean is they share your child's learning patterns, their frustration maps, their attention rhythms with companies that can, with a little work, figure out exactly which child, exactly which home, exactly which parents. And those third-party partners, they don't build better tutors. They build better ads. They build better engagement loops. They build better ways to keep your child on a screen longer, to make them want things they didn't know existed, to shape what they believe is normal before they have the language to question it. The contract I found is from a company called Goguardian, though it could be any of 24 vendors operating in this space right now. Goguardian sells what they call student safety and engagement tools to over 10,000 school districts. In January of 2026, the California Attorney General fined them $4.2 million for selling aggregated student browsing data to advertising networks. Aggregated, another comforting word. But what they were selling wasn't math scores. It was what they called learning engagement patterns, which included the websites students visited during school hours, the searches they made, the videos they watched, and most importantly, the emotional state inferred from their behavior. Did they linger on a page about depression? Did they search for symptoms of anxiety? Did they watch a video about self-harm? All of this was packaged and sold, and the buyers weren't educators. They were ad networks building what one internal document called predictive interest profiles for minors. Profiles that would follow these children into adulthood, that would shape what credit offers they received, what job ads they saw, what political messages were targeted to them, all because they were confused about algebra at 11 years old and the system noticed. But I promised you a story, not just documents. I promised you a person, because mechanisms are abstract until you see them eat someone alive. Her name is Sarah Chin, and she lives in a suburb of Sacramento that I won't name because she's been through enough. Sarah has a daughter, Mia, who was 8 last year when her school district rolled out a new AI reading tutor. The email Sarah got was almost identical to yours. Exciting new personalized learning, tailored to your child's unique needs. Sarah was busy. She was working 2 jobs. She trusted the school. She clicked agree. What else was she going to do? Mia loved the tutor at first. It was patient. It never got frustrated. It gave her stickers and encouragement, and it remembered her favorite characters. Sarah noticed Mia was spending more time on the tablet than usual, but it was educational screen time. And that felt different. That felt responsible. Then the ads started. Not on the tutor, of course. The tutor was clean, but on every other app Mia used on the family computer, on Sarah's phone, when she checked her email, suddenly there were ads for educational toys that Mia had mentioned to the tutor. Ads for tutoring services in subjects Mia had struggled with. Ads for anxiety apps because the tutor had logged that Mia paused for 43 seconds on a paragraph about a character feeling worried. Sarah didn't connect the dots at first. Who would? The tutor was on a school account. The ads were on the open internet. The distance between them felt like safety. Then Mia got an email, an actual email to her school address, from a company she'd never heard of, offering her a free trial of a new learning game based on her reading profile. Sarah's 8-year-old daughter received targeted marketing based on data collected by her school. Sarah called the district. They told her the data was de-identified. They told her there must be some other explanation. They told her she was overreacting. She requested the contract through a Public Records Act filing, and when she finally got it, 3 months later, she found page 7. The page that said third-party partners. The page that said advertising optimization. The page that said the quiet part out loud, which is that her daughter's education was never the product. Her daughter's attention was. Her daughter's confusion was. Her daughter's developing mind was the raw material, and the school had handed it over without asking. without explaining, without even understanding what they were giving away. Sarah pulled Mia out of the program. She told other parents. Most of them didn't believe her or didn't want to believe her because believing her meant feeling what you're feeling right now, and that feeling is heavy. It means questioning every email, every app, every piece of technology that comes home in your child's backpack. It means admitting that the institutions you trusted don't understand what they've bought, or worse, that they understand perfectly and don't care. Sarah told me she felt alone for months, like she was the crazy parent, the difficult parent, the one who couldn't just accept progress. But she wasn't crazy. She was early. She was one of the first to see the architecture, and now you're seeing it too. Because Mia's story isn't about one company or one school district. It's about the architecture of extraction that has been built around every aspect of your child's life, and yours, and mine. The same logic that turns a tutoring session into a data harvest is operating in your fitness tracker, your mental health app, your smart thermostat, your car, your workplace productivity software. Every interface that offers you convenience, personalization, optimization is asking something in return. It's asking for your behavior, your hesitation, your confusion, your desire, and it's not asking so it can serve you better. It's asking so it can predict you better, so it can shape you better, so it can sell access to your future self. Let me show you how deep this goes, because the next part is quieter and more personal, and it might be the part that stays with you. Have you ever noticed that the apps your child uses seem to know what they're afraid of before they do? Have you ever watched your kid hesitate on a math problem and then hours later seen an ad for a math tutoring service that seemed to know exactly where they got stuck? That's not coincidence. That's the ecosystem working as designed. The tutor logs the hesitation. The hesitation is flagged as a learning gap. The learning gap is packaged as a commercial opportunity. The commercial opportunity is sold to a tutoring marketplace. The marketplace buys an ad targeting children in your zip code who have demonstrated struggle with that specific concept. Your child sees the ad and feels seen, feels understood, feels like the app knows them, and they don't realize that being known by a machine is not the same as being cared for by a person. This is what I mean when I say the architecture. It's not one bad actor. It's not one greedy company. It's a system that has learned to monetize the gap between what we need and what we understand. Your child's education is just the newest frontier. The same companies that built the engagement engines that keep adults scrolling for hours have turned their attention to children. And they've done it with the cover of education, of safety, of care. They know that parents are busy. They know that schools are underfunded and overwhelmed. They know that most people will click agree because the alternative is opting out of the modern world. And who has the energy for that? They know that your guilt about screen time can be managed by calling it learning. They know that your desire to give your child every advantage can be weaponized into surrendering every privacy. But you are not powerless. You are not crazy. You are not the difficult parent. You are a person who noticed something wrong and is now finally equipped to name it. And naming it is the first act of resistance. The second act is asking the questions that expose the architecture for what it is. So here are 3 questions for your next PTA meeting. Not aggressive questions, not accusatory questions. questions that cannot be answered with the language they gave you, questions that force the conversation into the light. First question, when you say personalized learning, what exactly is being personalized? Is it the curriculum or is it the data collection? Is the system adapting to help my child learn, or is it adapting to build a more complete profile of my child's behavior? Ask them to define personalization without using the words adaptive or tailored. Ask them what the machine is learning about your child, not what your child is learning from the machine. Second question, where does the data go after it leaves this building? Not just who stores it, who buys it, who licenses it, who has the right to change the terms of use after we've already agreed. Ask for the names of the third-party partners. Ask for the contracts. Ask what happens to the data if the company is acquired, which happens constantly in this space, and the new owner has different ideas about what de-identified means. Third question, what is the cost of opting out? Not the technical cost, the social cost, the educational cost. If I say no to the AI tutor, will my child be penalized? Will they miss content? Will they be marked as non-compliant, as resistant to innovation, as a parent who doesn't want what's best? Because the architecture doesn't just extract data. It extracts consent through manufactured inconvenience. It makes resistance feel like neglect. It makes opting out feel like failing your child. Ask them what protections exist for families who choose not to participate. Ask them if they've ever had a family opt out and what happened to that child. Ask them if they even know. And here's what I need you to know about that opt out, because most parents don't. There is a federal law called the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, and it gives you rights that schools don't advertise. You have the right to inspect any educational records kept on your child. You have the right to request amendments if you believe those records are inaccurate. You have the right to consent or refuse consent to disclosures of personally identifiable information. And most importantly, you have the right to file a complaint with the Department of Education if you believe your rights have been violated. These aren't theoretical rights, they're tools, they're levers, they're the language that makes the architecture visible to the people who built it and hoped you wouldn't learn the vocabulary. But FERPA was written in 1974. It doesn't know what an AI tutor is. It doesn't know what a learning engagement pattern is. It doesn't know that your child's hesitation can be monetized. So the law is a starting point, not a finish line. The finish line is you and every other parent who decides that feeling sick about an email is not an overreaction, but a signal. That drop in your stomach is your intuition doing its job. It's the part of you that knows the difference between care and extraction, between teaching and tracking, between being known and being harvested. Trust it. Trust it even when the email says exciting. Trust it even when the principal says everyone else agreed. Trust it even when you feel alone, because you are not alone. You're just early. You're part of the group that sees the architecture before it becomes invisible, before it becomes normal, before it becomes too late to question. I want to leave you with something smaller than all of this, something personal. Last week, I talked to a teacher, someone who has been in classrooms for 20 years. And she told me that she doesn't use the AI tutor dashboard. She has access. She's supposed to use it to track student progress. But she told me she can't look at it without feeling like she's spying on children. She said she became a teacher because she believes in the moment when a student's eyes change, when they finally get it, and that moment can't be logged. It can't be measured. It can't be sold. It exists only in the space between two people who trust each other, and she won't let a machine replace that space. She doesn't say this to the administration. She just quietly does her job the old way, the human way, and hopes no one notices. She's not a revolutionary. She's not an activist. She's a person who felt something wrong and decided to act as if her feeling mattered. That's all any of this is. That's all any resistance ever is. A person who felt a door closing and decided to hold it open, even if they didn't know what was on the other side, even if they stood there alone for a while, even if they wondered if they were crazy. You're not crazy. You're holding a door open. And more people are coming. They just don't know it yet. Until next time.